Let's move on, Brandon, into the next team, 2 away from ending this podcast, and then next week we'll hit the top of the Big 12, and the next team we're going into is the Iowa State Cyclones. And the thing I want to touch on with Iowa State to begin is basically, and this might be a slap in the face to Iowa State fans, but I don't mean it that way, but this is a team we were not expecting 5 wins in conference last year. We were not expecting 8 wins overall last year. So I'm going to ask you the question that's floating in my head. Was last year for real when it came to the Cyclones, or was it a fake last year when it came to the Cyclones? And can we expect another year like we saw last year where this could be a 8-5 overall team and at least a 5-win Big 12 team?
Well, I'd like to say that it's not going to be a fluke, because I really enjoyed watching Iowa State last year. I really enjoyed being able to see them get some of those upset wins and play really well and end up with a good season. And so many people in Ames were loving it, and so many people were shocked. I think, quite frankly, so many people were shocked because I don't think that they believed that was going to happen. And not that they didn't want it to happen, not that they didn't have the hope that it was going to happen, but truly believed that they were going to end up with 8 wins on the season. I just don't think that they thought that was going to happen. And it did. And it's awesome as a fan of that team for them to feel that way and have that go on. But I guess my whole thing is they will continue to be good and have success if they don't let the loss of some of their solid offensive guys get to them, and if Kyle Kempt is able to continue to be solid. And
I know
that's
that he got, and when I say he is, I mean that we know for sure he received an extra year of eligibility to be the quarterback this year, but you're talking more so, can he be the guy that he was last year?
Can he be the guy that he was last year? And everything that you get with Kyle Kempt, it's he's not this just absolute gunslinger like a Mason Rudolph, and he's not a guy who's gonna run all over the place. Even like, I guess, like a Baker Mayfield. Like Baker could tuck it and he would go 50 yards. I mean, I remember I still remember that play against TCU. But Kyle Kempt is a guy who is a smart quarterback, and a guy who we talked earlier about with the Baylor Bears, how they cannot turn the football over. Kyle Kempt is a guy who is super smart, conscious with the football, and protective with the football. That's what's going to be, I think, the saving grace for Iowa State again this season, is that you've got a smart, capable, very good. And when I say that he doesn't have the best arm, he doesn't have the best legs, I'm not saying that he's not good. We clearly saw last year that he is good. He can lead a team. He's a leader. And if he can transfer that to this season, I do think that we're going to see another competitive Iowa State team.
Now, the thing that I will say is one of the things that I'm a little, I want to say, nervous about, in a sense, is basically the extension for Matt Campbell. Because for me, I would like to also say that, this Iowa State team isn't going to be a fluke. They're going to be just as good as they were last year. However, the thing that makes me nervous, and I don't know what the exact contract was for Matt Campbell when he was signed on 2016.
I think it was like a 5-year, 6-year deal that he got.
Not the extension. I'm saying
the first one. Okay.
Because the extension was a 6-year extension. Yeah. So the thing that serves me is, all right, you get that first year, you go 3-9 overall, 2-7 in the conference. Then your second year, you go 8-5, 5-4 in the conference. Part of me, I understand the contract extension. All right, we believe in our guy. We want to lock him down. However, part of me also doesn't understand the extension, because for me, you're a team like Iowa State. You're not really known, in my mind, for being a good football program.
He was really at Iowa State. That was his second year.
Yeah.
So he went 3-9 and then 8-5.
So for me, I feel like really before they offered him that extension, they should have waited until after this year. See what he does this year, then go. Part of me feels like it was a little bit too soon to do that because here's the thing I worry. Although I want them to be good and want it to be okay, I worry that what if this team takes a step back, they're not as good as they were last year, and then people go, oh my God, what did we do? We just locked this guy down for 6 years. I know that you can get, like, when it comes to contracts in general, you can just fire coaches whenever you want. But the thing with me is I feel like, did you only get that contract for a one-hit wonder season? That's the thing I worry about.
But can I tell you why? Can I tell you why they did that? Because they haven't had 8 wins
in forever
since they had 9 in 2000.
Yep.
The next best was 7. 7 in 01, 7 in 02, 04, 05, 09. And then after 09, the best that they got until the 8 was 6 in back-to-back years in 11 and 12. That's why they did it. That's why they did it. Because a team like Iowa State is different than a team like your Oklahomas or something like that, where they've seen consistent winning. Iowa State has not seen consistent winning. So when they see a guy who's able to turn around a program in his second year, like he was able to go from 3-9 to jump up and get 5 more wins to go to 8-5, you want to lock that guy in because you think you got something special there, and I cannot blame them for that.
And here's the thing I worry about, though, is what we were just talking about. Now, before I say this, I want to say that I think that Matt Campbell's a better coach than Cliff Kingsbury. There, I said it's on the record. However, the thing I worry about is that we look back, let's say 3 years down the line, we look back at this season that happened in 2017, and we go, "Oh man, when it came to his guys, it just isn't in the cards. Like they're not terrible, but man, they're just not a good football team." I wonder if, because the big thing is having, to me, this leads into my biggest question mark for them: how are they going to replace their senior wide receivers? They had 3 guys. Alan Lazard, who because with Alan Lazard in the draft process, I never knew exactly how to feel about him. Then in the comment section, we had someone from Iowa State go, "Hey, you got to check out Alan Lazard." Once I dove into his tape, I was all over him. I was like, he's an end of the first round, second round guy in my mind.
And you threw him on your big board.
I did at like 25. You're looking at him. Then you got Jake Campos. He's gone. Then you got Trevor Ryan. He's gone. So you have leadership at that wide receiver position all gone. And my question is, can guys like Hakeem Butler, like Deshaunte Jones, like Matthew Eaton, can these guys who, Butler and Jones were sophomores last year, can these guys pick up for those seniors that were gone? Or is this leadership that they're losing going to hurt them? Now, I'm not saying like hurt them to where they're a 3-win team again, but is it going to hurt them to where we look and we go, man, they are not an 8-win team? The one thing that I will say, and this goes against that, is the one thing that I will say going back to last year, this team should have had more wins on their resume. 44-41 overtime loss against Iowa. Probably should have won that one. 17-7 against Texas. Could have won that one. 20-16 against West Virginia. That's another one you could have won. 49-42 against Oklahoma State. There's another one you could have won. And then a 1-point loss, 20-19 to Kansas State. This is a team, and I know basically I just listed all of their losses, but every single loss was close. They never got blown out last year. Never got blown out. However, when they won, they also won very close, except for Northern Iowa. They blow out Northern Iowa. They blow out Akron. But everything else, 7 points against Oklahoma. You got 7 points against TCU, 10 points against Baylor, Kansas, and what's the other one? It was Kansas and Texas Tech were their only 2 Big 12 blowouts. Most of their games, except for 4 of them, were very close games. Is that going to be the same this year? Or is that offense going to really have to work to win games, even work harder than they did last year because they lose that senior leadership at wide receiver?
I'm going to say probably no, because when I hear that Hakeem Butler and Deshaunte Jones could become the best wide receiver duo in the Big 12, that's pretty comforting. And I think that what they need to do is they just need to be able to find their consistency. And I think what Kemp's going to have to do is just develop a good rapport with those guys. You lose your senior wide receivers, okay, but he was also working with these other guys last season because they were playing as sophomores.
Yeah.
So that's going to be something that should be pretty comfortable for Kemp. It's not like it's going to be something new for him. He doesn't have to. They're not new guys who are just going to be freshmen that they're trying to figure out how are you going to run the routes. Are you going to be, are you going to turn around and the ball's going to be there? Are you going to be ready? Are we on the same page? All that kind of stuff. You don't have to do that. You just have to get in the good rhythm like you were last year. And I think you're okay. You just got to find that consistency. And I don't think that's going to be too hard because these guys have already played. And that's why ultimately Iowa State is still set up in a good position offensively for that to go well for them.
And the thing I find funny is this is the first team that we're talking about in this preview that has a not just winning record, but has a winning conference record. They're one of 4 teams that finished 5-4 in the conference last year. And I find it funny that technically, because of the tiebreakers, Texas and West Virginia were ahead of Kansas State and Iowa State, who we're going to talk about to end this podcast. But both KSU and ISU were at 8 wins. West Virginia and Texas were at 7 wins. So they had a better overall record, but Big 12 tiebreakers just didn't end out. And this year, if this offense, if their wide receivers, like you said, can be the best duo in college football, I almost want to say that this is a year that Matt Campbell, and I know I've talked basically shit about the Cyclones so far. Like, was last year a fluke? It kind of seems like I might be really down on them. But if everything can fill in and they can answer the question, like my biggest one is the wide receiver holes, this could be a team that could be prime to make a run to win the Big 12. And that might be a big leap, but you look at it. Yes, you got to go to Iowa this year, but you almost beat them last year. I'm going to say you could beat them this year. Oklahoma, you beat them last year, and they lost a ton of guys. And I like Murray, but he's nothing like Baker Mayfield, and you beat Baker Mayfield last year. So I think you could have a chance to beat Oklahoma again. Oklahoma State, they just lost Washington and Rudolph. I think that game is closer than it was last year, could flip to ISU. Then you got West Virginia could be a win, Texas Tech could be a win. Basically the only other game on their schedule that I see being a for sure toss-up, Kansas State might be, but Texas. Which Texas team are we going to get this year? The team that, because it's funny that in our Texas little segment that we did a few weeks ago, all the comments are like, we hear this every year. Oh, this is going to be Texas's year. And then it never is. It just never is. Is this going to be the year that it's really their year? Or by November 17th, are we looking at that game going, wow, this could be Iowa State's statement game to then solidify themselves in the top 2 of the conference to have a shot to play for the Big 12?
Well, I would find it hard to believe if Texas is not better than what they were last season. I mean, they have to be. They have to be, right? But I would also find it hard to believe to see Iowa State do any worse than what they did last year. Because this is a team that's still trending and moving in the right direction. They, some of the things that we've talked about on other teams is, what's happening with their offensive line? How's that? Their offensive line, yes, they lose 2 really good starters in Jake Campos and Robbie Garcia, but they return everybody else. And that's a positive. That's actually the first time they've done that since back in 2015. So if they are able to at least provide a little bit of consistency, again, name of the game on a lot of these is consistency.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're able to be fairly rock solid in 3 out of 5 spots on the offensive line, that's not too bad. Still filling 2 holes is tough, especially 2 guys who were really integral on the offensive line, but it could be worse. It could be Kansas. So I think that Iowa State is really still setting themselves up in a good position. They're still setting themselves up in a good position, and then that offensive line can still be good. Then we're going to continue to see a good running game. We're going to continue to see Kemp be able to have pressure taken off of him and time to be able to make his throws.
The thing that could be even more important this year for Iowa State, and this might be me getting ahead of myself, but I'm still going to say it. If they do make the Big 12 championship game and finish either with the 1 or the 2 seed, this could be the first time ever that ISU qualifies for a conference title game. Because when you look at it, it's interesting to me because looking back on it, in most of our history, 1996, so when I was 6, you were 3, to 2010, when the championship used to be for the Big 12. The thing I find funny is the North Division at the time, yeah, Nebraska kind of has the majority, but it was pretty much a toss-up. Like you got Nebraska, Kansas State, Colorado, Missouri, all qualifying for that game. The thing I found funny when it was the North and the South is the South Division had 3 teams qualify for it. Texas A&M had 2 years in 97, 98. Do you know the other 2 teams to qualify for the other, what would that be? 10, 14 seasons? Texas and Oklahoma. Basically, it was the South. It was either Texas or Oklahoma was going through. But now it's 1 and 2. You don't have to win your side of the division. So for me, ISU has a great chance, to be in that conversation. I'm going to say be in the conversation because I expect Oklahoma to finish 1 in the Big 12 again. Do they get upset by an ISU, lose a game here or there? Maybe, but I expect them to be number 1. I think this year number 2 is a toss-up. Like last year, we expected it at the beginning of the season to beat Oklahoma State. They didn't. TCU's a team that's always around. Maybe this year people expect it to be Oklahoma State and Texas. Have another Red River rivalry shootout game, this time for all the marbles in Arlington, Texas. However, is this Cyclone team going to take that and go, hey, you know what? We won 8 games last year. We should be in this conversation. We're the underdog. We're going to spoil this party. And do they take that momentum and carry that all year, having that underdog mentality to then get into that championship game?
And can I tell you what could be interesting in this kind of race that we're going to see this year here in the Big 12 is that Iowa State may already have a leg up on some of these teams that we haven't talked about yet, but that you just did mention, because they already are set on their quarterback. Oklahoma, are they?
I'd be shocked if Murray didn't win the job.
Okay, I'm just saying. Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, TCU, they're not necessarily all set.
Yeah.
They lost a good quarterback,
especially
and
like
it's not
Texas.
It's not like they're just asking. They've got another one just waiting in the wings, salivating to come on through. I guess I would give a little bit of an edge then to Iowa State in that category because they've got a guy who led them to this 8-win season, their best finish since 2000. They are going to continue to go with him and ride his skill, his ability, his knowledge. This is I would be excited if I'm Iowa State because I feel like I've already got a leg up on the competition because we already know who our quarterback's going to be.
I feel like the only team that has that, along with Iowa State from the top 5, is Oklahoma. Because like Kyler Murphy, although it's not for sure he's the starter, I would be shocked he's not the starter. Now the conversation with him is, I find it funny. We do a video about Texas football, and most of the comment section is how much of a dumbass Kyler Murphy is for not taking his $5 million. Murray. Taking his $5 million and going to play for like the A's. Is that who he got drafted by?
Yes.
A lot of people are thinking that he should take the money, go play for the A's, not risk getting injured and play football. The thing is he expecting to be Russell Wilson and get drafted in the NFL? Because I'll be honest, it's a lot easier to make big bucks in the NFL. In the MLB, yeah, $5 million is good right now, but if I can't get to the majors and get that next contract, it doesn't really help me. If I can get to the NFL, get that contract, it's easier to get that second contract in the NFL compared to the MLB, but that's a conversation for a different day. Iowa State, to me, is on the teeter-totter, where the teeter-totter is just balancing. It's just which side do you want to tip to? Do you want to tip to the side that has you go worse or the same as this year, like, 5-4 in the conference or less, you don't make a splash in the top 5? Or do you tip to that side where it's like, you know what, this is the year we make that big push. We make that push, win those close games. Like I've been talking about the whole time on this podcast, it seems. Last year was hey, we lost some games, but we lost them close. This year could be the year where it's like those close losses turn into close wins. And here's what I see. If the season goes great for Iowa State, this is what I see. A really good season of like maybe 2 losses, 1-2 losses. Those close losses become close wins. They become one of the top 2 teams in the conference. But they lose to like an Oklahoma in the championship game. And then next year becomes, all right, we have that experience. Now we're going to take it into the next one. However, then next year's question becomes who's our quarterback, because Kemp won't be there, but that's a topic for a different day.
I think my final thought is Iowa State is going to be very disappointed if they don't repeat or do better than what they did last season, because they've really got an opportunity, I think, to be one of those top teams. When you look at it, they've got the talent, they've got the skill, they've got the pieces. They just need to put it together again. And like you said, you look at some of those close games they had last year, you take 1 or 2 more of those, you could be a 10-win team. And then we're talking you could be at the top of the Big 12. And I know we're probably getting a little excited on that, but it's still an opportunity. The Big 12 seems like it's shaping up in my mind of what I'm looking at. I know we haven't done the top 5 teams in the Big 12, but of what I'm seeing and of what we've talked about, the Big 12 is looking like it's more of an open race, kind of up for anybody right now. Because I don't know, you take away a Baker Mayfield from a team, you take away a Mason Rudolph, you take away some of these really good quarterbacks, and gosh, that's like, okay, guys, let's run, hurry. We can get past them now. That's kind of how I look at what this season could be in the Big 12.
And that's why I'm using that underdog mentality when it comes to ISU. But I want you guys to chime in. Let us know what you guys think down below in the comment section. What do you expect from Iowa State? Do you expect them to maybe make a Big 12 championship game? Let us know what you think down below in that comment section.